Why don't we blow the system up? I mean, obviously we can't just turn off the spigot on the system we have and then say, hey, everyone in the world should get this new vaccine we haven't given to anyone yet. But there must be some way that we grow vaccines mostly in eggs the way we did in 1947.
In order to make the transition from getting out of the tried and true egg growing, which we know gives us results that can be, beneficial. I mean, we've done well with that, to something that has to be much better. You have to prove that this works, and then you've got to go through all of the clinical trials, phase 1s, phase 2s, phase 3, and then show that this particular product is going to be good over a period of years. That alone, if it works perfectly, is going to take a decade.
There might be a need or even an urgent call for an entity of excitement out there that's completely disruptive, that's not beholden to bureaucratic strings and processes.
So we really do have a problem of how the world perceives influenza, and it's going to be very difficult to change that unless you do it from within and say, I don't care what your perception is, we're going to address the problem in a disruptive way and in an iterative way, because you do need both.
But it is not too crazy to think that an outbreak of a novel avian virus could occur in China somewhere. We could get the RNA sequence from that, beam it to a number of regional centers, if not local, if not even in your home at some point, and print those vaccines on a patch and self-administer.
So there's the whole plan laid out, and it's in the Rockefeller Foundation plan, lockstep. It's in the Bill Gates Event 201. We've gone over this here, but I'm going to play this clip of clips again and start it and stop it. Did you hear that? An entity of excitement, an entity of excitement, of hysteria, of fear, a monster for the Great Reset. That's the head of all the research and development, the director at the HHS, and their whole medical takeover. And they go through all of this. Blow the whole system up, says the New Yorker. We've got to get rid of this old vaccine system. And we've got to come out with genetic engineering, mRNA. If they go on in the full C-SPAN clip, it's in the description. I went to the C-SPAN site. I mean, this is just unbelievable. We've got to go get that full interview, that full 2-hour program, and hell, play that on the show tomorrow, because it gets worse, ladies and gentlemen. They are there saying, blow it all up. We need this entity of fear. We need to have a virus that appears helpfully out of China, where they had the Wuhan lab, where they had it all ready, where they had it prepared. And then 2 months after this, Peter Daszak is bragging in December of 2019 that they had combined these viruses, that is the COVID virus, COVID-19, with the HIV delivery system to get it into humans. And it's all right there. We're going to play those clips for you in a moment. But first, let's go back and play the clip, and I will make comments as we go. Here it is.
Why don't we blow the system up? I mean, obviously we can't just turn off the spigot on the system we have and then say, hey, everyone in the world should get this new vaccine we haven't given to anyone yet. But there must be some way that we grow vaccines mostly in eggs the way we did in 19...
Let's hit pause. We're going to back it up. If people don't think we changed it, back up to the beginning again. We're going to play it after I'm done, but let me just... Why don't we just blow it up? Couldn't there be something we could do? They've all behind closed doors had their meetings, created their consensus years before, in Operation Lockstep, Crimson Contagion, SARS, SPARS, all these drills they've done. They create their backstory about the bats are going to get you, and it's going to emerge out of a cave, they said 5 years ago, and get you while they're breeding it and getting it out of the cave and making it. And Peter Daszak says, we'll make a vaccine to be the saviors. He said that 2 months after the video you just saw. So they're premeditating it all, ladies and gentlemen. They love to brag. They love to tell you. And then it goes to Fauci. He goes, oh, yeah, it's terrible. It takes 10 years. We can't have this. If there was just something to get rid of the old system, which now they say, oh, mRNA for cancer, mRNA for the cold, mRNA for this, mRNA for that, mRNA for the flu, mRNA. This whole system of, just a digital system that just changes your DNA. All right, so start from the beginning again.
Why don't we blow the system up? I mean, obviously we can't just turn off the spigot on the system we have and then say, hey, everyone in the world should get this new vaccine we haven't given to anyone yet. But there must be some way that we grow vaccines mostly in eggs, the way we did in 1947.
In order to make the...
All right, pause. Back up to the beginning of Fauci. Now, the reason I'm doing this is very important. They're pitchmen. They prepared all this. They've done white papers. They've done tabletop exercises. They've met dozens of times to prepare all this. I know the same people have been in dozens of meetings behind closed doors, and the documents have now come out. But now here they are saying on a stage what they are about to release. It's going to ravage the world in just a few months at the beginning of 2020. In fact, evidence shows it was already out in October. Oh, couldn't we do something? This is the plan to get rid of Trump, get rid of Bolsonaro, the plan to bring in globalism. And what would we do? Well, you'd then trample it. You wouldn't do the test. You wouldn't do the studies that Fauci's about to talk about. You'd overrun all of that. You'd demonize, attack anybody that didn't accept it. This is, as I've said 100 times, is a revolution of getting rid of our old system, bringing in something far worse. A medical dictatorship saying it owns your body and it's going to control where you go and what you do. And just like they've said in Australia, we do whatever the health minister says. They're the leader. You won't accept a president or prime minister being a dictator, but if it's the health minister saying you are non-essential, well, then you will accept it. That's how the fear works. That's how the control works. So he says, what do? We need to get rid of the system. And here comes Fauci to talk about what the problem is. And then the other operative from HHS, he gives a solution to blow up the system, the new entity, the new fear, the new virus that it seems to be, needed to do this, and then it magically appears. Here it is.
In order to make the transition from getting out of the tried and true egg growing, which we know gives us results that can be, beneficial. I mean, we've done well with that, to something that has to be much better. You have to prove that this works. And then you've got to go through all of the clinical trials, phase 1s, phase 2s, phase 3, and then show that this particular product is going to be good over a period of years. That alone, if it works perfectly, is going to take a decade.
There might be a need or even an urgent call for an entity of excitement out there that's completely disruptive, that's not beholden to bureaucratic strings and processes.
So we really do have a problem of how the world perceives influenza, and it's going to be very difficult to change that unless you do it from within and say, I don't care what your perception is, we're going to address the problem.
Pause. Back it up again. We don't care what your perception is. We're going to address the problem of influenza because people aren't scared enough of it. They're not taking their shots that really are piggyback to sterilize you and lower fertility and all the things we know destroy your immune system. That's been in all the studies. And so they want to make us pod people they control. They want to make us, GMO like Terminator seeds. And so he says it doesn't matter. Yeah, disrupt is part of it, but also, inside the system. So attack the system from without and then make it change from within under the pressure you put it under. Just like attacking the police to make them go under globalist control, or bullying a corporation to make them become woke. It's all the process of behavioral psychology and Pavlovian control. So let's go to the last key statement.
The world perceives influenza, and it's going to be very difficult to change that unless you do it from within and say, I don't care what your perception is, we're going to address the problem in a disruptive way and in an iterative way, because you do need both.
But
stop there. Back it up 3 seconds. So he just agrees with it. We need to blow it up. We need the disruptive thing. We need the problem. But also using the system, don't totally blow it up. This is all Hegelian dialectic, problem, reaction, solution. They're engaged in Hegelian dialectics in front of you, selling the idea for the press that's in the gallery and those watching. They're now externalizing their takeover system after they create the fear and the whole event and create the virus in China. And it's all confirmed. It's all admitted. They made it. They did it. China, that normally puts you in a death camp if you put a video out, encourage people to run around hysterically and put out a bunch of fake footage. We all run into our houses and come back out with vaccine passports and are slaves. Okay, so let's go ahead now and finish up with the last part of the clip.
But it is not too crazy to think that an outbreak of a novel avian virus could occur in China somewhere. We could get the RNA sequence from that, beam it to a number of regional centers, if not local, if not even in your home at some point, and print those vaccines on a patch and self-administer.
Oh, in China, where you've got an agreement to build it, do it, and they were on board to create the hysteria, and then like dominoes, we'd fall. There you go. So now let's move on to January 2017, Fauci predicting what he was already funding at Wuhan and running, the gain of function, and that what Trump would be facing, what America would be facing. Here it is.
Given, as you heard from the introduction, that I have been around for a while and have had the opportunity and the privilege and the pleasure of serving in 5 administrations, I thought I would bring that perspective to the topic today, is the issue of pandemic preparedness. And if there's one message that I want to leave with you today based on my experience, and you'll see that in a moment, is that there is no question that there will be a challenge to the coming administration in the arena. There will be a challenge to the coming administration in the arena of infectious diseases, both chronic infectious diseases in the sense of already ongoing disease, and we have certainly a large burden of that, but also there will be a surprise outbreak. But also there will be a surprise outbreak. But also there will be a surprise outbreak. And I hope by the end of my relatively short presentation, you will understand why history, the history of the last 32 years that I've been the director of NIAID, will tell the next administration that there's no doubt in anyone's mind that they will be faced with the challenges that their predecessors were faced with.
Now let's hear the other infamous clip from Peter Daszak running the whole program at Wuhan under Fauci and Gates on record. Daszak on This Week with Virology podcast talking about viruses and vaccine development. And it's an hour-long podcast. We've posted it at man.video because they tried to take it down. Here he is, now that we know the outbreak was already going, putting out the cover story that, oh, yeah, we went and got a bunch of stuff out of these caves and we put them together and so made it where humans could be infected so we could come out with vaccines. Here it is.
And where did they come from? And we went out to southern China and did surveillance of bats across southern China. And we've now found, after 6 or 7 years of doing this, over 100 new SARS-related coronaviruses, very close to SARS. Some of them get into human cells in the lab. Some of them can cause SARS disease in humanized mouse models and are untreatable with therapeutic monoclonals, and you can't vaccinate against them with the vaccine. So these are a clear and present danger. Yeah. We've even found people with antibodies in Yunnan to SARS-related coronaviruses. So there's human exposure. Right. We're now doing surveillance. We're just beginning another 5 years of work to look at cohorts in southern China to say, well, how frequent does this spillover happen, and is it associated with disease? Because I expect, just like Nipah in Bangladesh, there are dozens and dozens of small spillovers going on the planet at any one time, which we just never see. Sure.
Yeah, they never amplify. There are a few cases, and they're just absorbed in the illness, the overall illness of the population, right?
Now, you could say, so who cares? And that's one argument. But our strategy is any one of those could become pandemic. There's a lot of stochasticity in what happens then. Yeah. So if we look at all of them, understand patterns, try and reduce the number of spillover events, we've got,
But if you're saying these are diverse coronaviruses and you can't vaccinate against them, there are no antivirals, what do we do?
Well, so I think that coronaviruses are pretty good. I mean, you're a virologist, you know all this stuff, but you can manipulate them in the lab pretty easily. It's just spike protein drives a lot of what happens with the coronavirus, zoonotic risk. So you can get the sequence, you can build the protein, and we work with Ralph Barrick at UNC to do this. Insert it into a backbone of another virus, and do some work in the lab. So you can get more predictive when you find a sequence. You've got this diversity. Now, the logical progression for vaccines is if you're going to develop a vaccine for SARS, people are going to use pandemic SARS as
sure.
But let's try and insert some of these other related and get a better vaccine.
And I guess also knowledge of what's there if you see something emerging, you give it a head start on making a vaccine or a therapeutic.
That's true, and you know, better knowledge of where they are as well, so that you can put your money into the clinics that matter.
All right.